What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. Today, we are officially jumping in to Matthew chapter 7. It is wild to me. It is hard to believe that we've already covered Matthew chapter 5, Matthew chapter 6. And so now we are into the final chapter, chapter 7 of the same sermon, the Sermon on the Mount. And guys, this one is a very good one. I like to think of Jesus as one who didn't always take himself seriously. And there are moments in scripture, and today's teaching is one of those where you're just like, oh, Jesus was actually being funny. Like he was driving home a serious point, but he used humor to actually get there. And so let's jump in out of the gate. It is strong language. So Matthew chapter 7, verse 1, let's roll up the sleeves. Let's get into it. Jesus says, "Judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you." Okay, wow, guys. Oh, that is so good. So out of the gate, Jesus says, "Judge not that you be not judged." And that is strong language. And I think I'm grateful for this passage of the Sermon on the Mount because I think it brings some clarity to maybe a widespread question that Christians have, especially in the digital age, the age of outrage, the age of social media, where there is just so much judgment out there. There is so much shaming out there. There are so many exposés out there where you like blink or the next day there's another exposé where another pastor is being exposed or another leader is being exposed. And you begin to ask the question, okay, what did Jesus have to say about this? Is this right? Is this wrong? Where's the line? What does it look like to, am I allowed to judge? Should I not judge? Like, should I throw away my judgment? What does this look like? And I think Jesus provides some clarity behind this today. And so I'm going to do my best to unpack it. I want to start here in that, like, Jesus, throughout the Sermon on the Mount, everything that Jesus has said, we realize that Jesus is perfect theology for it. Jesus perfectly outworks and portrays what it looks like to be a follower, a disciple, a Christian. And so we look to Jesus as the kind of like the gold standard. What would Jesus do is the famous wristband that we would wear. And you ask the question, okay, why did Jesus come to the world? Well, you think about John chapter 3, verse 16, the famous John 3:16, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only son." But the next verse, John 3:17, it actually says this: Jesus did not come into the world to condemn the world, but to actually save the world. Okay, so when Jesus looks at a lost and a broken world, his goal is not to condemn us. It's not to just say, well, shame on you guys. You messed up. You failed. And so you deserve to like be publicly shamed. And everyone should know how much of a failure you are. You messed up. You fell short. Like that is not why Jesus came to the world. Jesus came so that we would be saved. Jesus's goal is reconciliation. Jesus's goal is restoration. And so to address this question, is Jesus saying to us, okay, when he says, "Do not judge," is he saying, hey, throw out your discernment? Oh, like I see some issues here. I see some people sinning. I see my friends messing up or my family messing up, but I'm going to turn a blind eye because like, I don't want to be judgy, man. Like, I just don't want to judge anyone. Like, let people do what they want to do. Like, we can fall into the trap of thinking that this is what Jesus is saying, that we can never exercise discernment, that we can never have critical thinking, that we must always ignore the problems or the faults that are right in front of us. And Jesus, I believe Jesus is not saying that at all. For some proof, you can look at Matthew chapter 18, verse 15, where Jesus says, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault. So right there, you see the importance of actually, when we relate to one another, actually helping one another. And I think that right there is a key word. That word I just used, help one another. We restore one another. We move one another forward positively. And so when Jesus says, judge not, Jesus isn't saying, don't use discernment. Our discernment's there, and actually correction is really important. We'll get there in a little bit. What Jesus is saying is don't condemn. Because if Jesus didn't come in the world to condemn the world, then we certainly should not make it our aim, our goal. And this is so much of social media. The goal is to actually condemn, to say you're wrong, and I want everyone to know you're wrong. Well, that's not the heart that Jesus is after, because the heart of God is unto restoration. The heart of God is unto salvation. And so Jesus, how he wants us to relate with one another is not us being really self-righteous. It's not us just going, hey, why did you do that? You messed up. And I need everyone to know that you messed up. And like back then, and especially now, there's a lot of blaming. There's a lot of finger pointing. There's a lot of judging. That is to say, a lot of condemning. But that is not how Jesus followers, Christ followers ought to operate. And so this is kind of what Jesus is getting at. He's seeing a lot of people who are pointing the finger and not even realizing that they themselves have error and sin and wickedness on the inside of them. And Jesus, to make this point very clear, he was a carpenter. And so Jesus uses this hilarious metaphor where he says, you're pointing out a speck in someone's eye when you have like a 2x4, you have like a giant plank of wood in your own eye. How about you deal with the plank that's in your eye before you deal with the speck in someone else's eye? So to reinforce the point, Jesus is not saying when you see a speck, leave it. Like, hey, I hope they figure it out themselves. No, like no one wants to live with a speck in their eye. Like I know when I get I was about to say a wood chip. When I get like a speck in my eye, maybe I'm going into we have a woodworking workshop out the back. When I go there and there's kind of wood, I sound so amateur right now. But basically, long story short, when I get a speck in my eye, my eyes water up. Like I struggle to see clearly. I'm blinking like crazy. I don't know, like everything kind of stops for me. I'm unable to see clearly. And it's actually really helpful if someone will assist me to get the speck, or at least point out the speck so that I can remove the speck in my eye. So it's important in the community of believers that we do help each other, that we do actually, when we see faults, that we actually help our neighbor. We, of course, the manner in which we do it is very important. We do it with a spirit of love and a spirit of gentleness, because the manner, this is maybe not a side note, but this is important to note. Like if your aim is correction, but your tone is condemnation, what is the result going to be? Like we want to avoid people feeling like, oh, I'm in the core of who I am, a terrible person. That's what shame is, right? Shame says there is something fundamentally wrong with you. And oftentimes the manner in which we correct and confront will actually aid our cause. But again, to go back to the metaphor, it's good that a speck is removed. But how funny this idea that the ones that are trying to remove the speck actually have a log in their own eye. And that grieves me, honestly, when I've done it, but also when I see it around me, that this level of self-righteousness of just like, hey, I'm like, I'm doing stuff right. I'm righteous. I'm actually following Jesus. I'm holy. But you're so full of sin and you're so full of compromise. Yeah, I mean, I just know everyone listening, you know exactly what I am talking about. And I think this is a really good check and balance from Jesus, where Jesus, again, is not saying don't correct, but he is saying, hey, maybe examine yourself first. Like, even if you are going to correct, even if you are going to confront with the goal, the biblical goal of restoration, like maybe have an awareness of you where you're at. Like, is there sin in your life? Like, are there things that you're dealing with in your own life? Is there a giant log in your eye that is actually impairing vision? Because that's the irony in trying to fix someone else's vision. You're doing it with blurry vision yourself. Like, if your vision is impaired, how can you help someone else see? And so Jesus is saying, let's fix this so that first you can see clearly, then someone else can see clearly. It's like the famous G.K. Chesterton quote where someone asked him, GK, like, what is wrong with the world? And GK was humble enough and honest enough to answer that question. What is wrong with the world? I am. Yours sincerely, G.K. Chesterton. I am. I take responsibility. And I just think like that is such a beautiful way to live our lives when we see a fault, and there are faults everywhere in my I'm so full of faults. The people in my life are so full of faults. When you see a fault, yes, it's good to actually address it and walk with someone in love. But as a almost like a check and a balance, we go inward and we go, hey, but is there a plank in my own eye? Is there some sort of hindrance? Is there some sort of bitterness or offense or self-righteousness or sin that is actually impairing my vision? And so all of what Jesus is talking about is essentially how we relate to one another, and to not have a double standard or to be hypocrites in the way that we actually deal with each other. But we actually, when we see clearly, as sons and daughters of God, we can help one another become more and more like Jesus. I'll finish with this. There's kind of a paragraph break in my Bible, and it says, do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. I don't really think in this gospel message that Jesus is suddenly turning around in a section that he's saying, judge not. I don't think Jesus is then going, look at those dogs over there. Look at those pigs over there. No. This to me has a lot to do with what is digestible. What is so if you just if you think about a dog, and if you throw a dog this Bible, like the dog is not going to know what to do with this Bible. I mean, maybe if it's a puppy, it'll try and eat it. But the same with a pig. Like a pig, literally, it cannot digest pearls. If you throw pearls to pigs, the pig's not going to eat the pearls. Like why would it? It cannot possibly like digest it. Okay, so what is Jesus talking about here? He calls out, do not give dogs what is holy. And then when it comes to pearls, well, there's another, I mentioned this in the previous podcast actually, but in Matthew chapter 13, there's the mention of the kingdom of God, like a pearl of great value, of high price that you find. And so I think you can kind of follow Jesus's thinking, and you go, okay, the picture is of pushing the gospel, pushing the kingdom on people, like finding fault and saying, hey, like you got this is how you can make your life better. Hey, this is what Jesus says, and pushing it on people that are not yet ready to receive the information. I think that I was a youth pastor for many years, and so many students that I have interacted with over the years, their story is of growing up, and it's like the gospel, the Bible, the message of Jesus was like forced upon them, pushed upon them, and it's like it's a matter of pacing and it's a matter of timing, and there's a level of trust with that, especially as a parent, of pacing and timing. Because sometimes if it's not digestible, then there's this opposite effect. There's this, I'm not ready to receive it. And so I do see where Jesus is coming at in the context of how we relate to one another and helping build one another up and helping bring correction and encouragement. Jesus ends this little section by talking about, okay, pace, timing, and digestibility. Is the information that you are giving, is the encouragement that you're giving going to fall on ears that are receptive, on a heart that is actually ready to receive what it is that you have to say? And so Jesus's way is a way of love. And as a reminder, we open this whole thing up with Jesus did not come into the world to condemn it, but to actually save it. And so I think this gives us a lot to work with when it comes to our approach to one another, especially when we see fault, when we see sin. This gives us a framework for how to deal with it biblically, with gentleness and with love. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, guys. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next time.